So we're going to start with the Common Core State Standards Basics, which is a short overview of Common Core as it relates to students with disabilities in the broader sense. You should have the PowerPoint in front of you, along with the note-taking guide so that you can collect your thoughts. And you should also have the legal-sized document for educational benefit and writing aligned IEPs. And when we look at our educational benefit and the aligned IEPs, a way to frame the Common Core State Standards is that, again, we're always looking at the grade level Common Core State Standards, so we have to be familiar with what they are. We also have to ensure that the instruction is aligned with our grade level standards based on where the student is currently functioning. And our goals and objectives have to be based and a reference made to which grade level Common Core State Standard we're writing the goal to. Okay, so that's how Common Core kind of fits into the IEP development process. And we're going to look at Common Core through the lens of what's not covered in the Common Core State Standards. So the first thing I'd like to address is that the standards define what all students are expected to know and be able to do, not how teachers teach. And I think that's a misunderstanding. That, in many of the articles that I read, that people are saying the Common Core aren't going to allow X, Y, or Z to happen. And it's actually not the Common Core. The Common Core is the what. The how, that's left up to districts, that's left up to schools, that's left up to teachers in how to make sure that the information gets across so that students are receiving Common Core aligned instruction. Also, while the standards focus on what is most essential, they do not describe all that can and should be taught. Common Core State Standards are just a snapshot of certain access points that we want students to learn and know, understand, be able to do. Many of our students with disabilities might have different focus areas. It doesn't mean that a student with autism who requires ABA, doesn't the behavioral piece directly affect a child's access to the academic piece? That part's not listed in the Common Core, but it is certainly essential to the success of many of our students with disabilities. Same thing with social emotional learning. Same thing with communicative competence. So the instructional how is very different than the instructional what. The standards set grade-specific standards, but do not define the intervention methods or materials necessary to support students who are well below or well above grade level expectations. They define at grade level, this is what a child is expected to know and be able to do. When we talk about students who are functioning at different grade levels below and above those grade level standards, the interventions, the supports and services, that's what the IEP team has to figure out in order for the student to move forward. That's not going to be found in the Common Core State Standards. It's beyond the scope of the standards to define the full range of supports appropriate for English language learners and for students with special needs. FYI, that's the importance of the IEP team. That's the importance of parents understanding their role in and the decisions that are made at the table. They're life-critical decisions that are being made. And I just want to press upon the parents that you can't be a passive standby participant in the meeting. You have to know what's happening and what's being discussed. In the discussion of the assessment information, a lot of special ed language being used, a lot of medical, and many times that's when a parent checks out because they don't understand what's being discussed. Just to kind of help put you at ease a little bit, many of the educators around the table also don't know what's being discussed. If I don't have a specific area of knowledge in speech and language, much of that information I don't understand. I have to ask clarifying questions in order to participate in the decision making. So we have to be really, really clear on the IEP team, the importance of the IEP team and the decisions that are made within the context of the Common Core. Quick note, at the same time, all students must have the opportunity to learn and meet the same high standards if they are to access the knowledge and skills necessary for their post-secondary lives. Critical piece that we have high standards for all students. We have to be careful that we're not rescuing our students. Does everyone understand what rescuing them means? It means that we jump in too quick. It means that we jump in too deeply and we don't allow the students to experience learning or experience making mistakes as part of the learning process. So we have to be really, really clear that our students with disabilities are provided the same opportunities. And number 5, while the English language arts content area literacy components are critical to college career readiness, they do not define the whole of such readiness. And we talked about the importance of social emotional learning, communicative competence, behavioral, self-determination, self-advocacy. Students require wide-ranging, rigorous academic preparation, and particularly in the early grades, attention to such matters as social emotional learning, physical development, and approaches to learning. Their approaches to learning. Okay? So I just wanted to go over the organization of the Common Core, and it goes back to an earlier question that within the reading strand, and this is why we have to be specific to the actual standard within the strand that we're referencing when we write our IEPs. So within reading, we have reading literature, reading informational text, reading foundations, reading standards for literacy and history social studies, reading standards for literacy in science and technical subjects. So I could, as the teacher at the IEP team meeting, I could pull out any of the standards within these strands. I could pull out reading foundations. It's only K-5. I could pull out reading informational text at any grade level. In writing, I have writing K-5 and 612, writing standards for literacy and history, social studies, science, and technical subjects, 612. I need to know the organization of my writing standards. Makes sense, right? I know what standards mean what. It allows me, as the teacher, to navigate a little bit more efficiently where the area of deficit is and how to align my goal. I also have speaking and listening, K-5 and 612, and language K-5 and 612. Point I want to make about speaking and listening and language, do not overlook them. You will find many, many basic skills within the language strand. You'll find reading expectations in the language strand. You'll find writing expectations within the language strand. Many times we forget about that language strand when those are really, really applicable standards to the needs of our students. So we have to make sure we understand the language, and we have to look at speaking and listening. Many of our students have language processing deficits. You're going to find appropriate standards within the speaking and listening standards. So in many cases, we start with speaking and listening standards, and then we might move into reading and writing. However you craft them, we have to have a clear understanding of how they're organized in order to kind of navigate and how to choose and prioritize the appropriate standards. And just another way to look at that, we have the Common Core standards. They're broken up into English language arts and math. Within English language arts, they're separated into K-5 and 612. Within K-5, we have reading, writing, speaking, listening, and language. Within 612, we also have those 4 strands along with writing for literacy and reading for literacy within history, social studies, science, and technical subjects. So you can see lots of strands to choose from. If I, as the teacher, next year, don't know where that goal came from, I'm at a deficit in providing appropriate accommodations. I want to show you the progression. So I'm looking at the exact same standard at different grade levels. So I'm looking at Common Core State Standards, English Language Arts, Kindergarten, Standard number 2, and it's reading informational text. With prompting and support, identify the main topic and retell key details of a text. Think about what the expectation is in kindergarten. Main topic, right? Main topic and retell. Let's look at 5th grade, Same standard, and I want you to notice the spiral. Determine 2 or more main ideas of a text and explain how they are supported by key details. See, they have similar expectations, but at a deeper level. Same thing for standard number 2 at grade 8. Determine a central idea of a text. See, we're going back to the main idea. Can we pull out the main idea and analyze its development over the course of the text? How does it change over the course of the text, including its relationship to supporting ideas? See how there's the same core information or expectation within each of the standards? You'll find that through the English Language Arts standards, regardless of the strand. So in writing, from kindergarten to 12th grade, you will see that same spiral. In language, if you're looking at language, kindergarten, standard number 4, if you look at standard number 4 all the way through the grade levels, you'll see the spiral. It's the exact same standard with deeper implications. So it makes it easier to align your goals and objectives as you go through the years. When we look at math, math is broken up into K5, 6, 12 also. But this is where we're also getting into the high school conceptual categories or the integrated math. So we have domains in math, and you can see how they're connected across grade levels. So for counting and cardinality, I know that that's a kindergarten expectation. You're not going to see counting and cardinality beyond kindergarten. So think about your goal development. Number and operations in base 10, you'll see numbers and operations in base 10, K through 5. And then you can see how it's connected when we look at 6 through 8 and 9 through 12. So it just gives you a frame for the various areas of the math Common Core State Standards. So you can get a bigger picture of it. And then we have some Common Core resources. If you could just there's great parent resources here. If you could just make a mark by understood. Are any of you subscribing to understood? Do you love it? It's perfect for parents, and it's actually really, really great for teachers because it's specifically for parents, for students who have learning disabilities and attention deficit, but it focuses on, in really clear language, executive functions, behavior, auditory processing, dyscalculia. But it's great information. If you subscribe to it, it'll send you notifications, and it's really the one resource that I subscribe to that I never don't read. Like I always, it's really easily written, and it's broken down into here's 5 points for executive functions for parents to talk to their kids. Here's how to talk to your child about their disability, things like that. So that, I just put a star by that because that's my favorite. Achieve the Core and Engage New York, great information for parents to help them understand the Common Core, how it's lined out, and how it connects to IEP development also.